And
No.
what happened?
What happened was not cute. Yeah, there was drama.
From who?
One of them.
Oh.
One of the actors.
Mm-hmm.
And what happened was not cute. Yeah, there was drama. From who? One of them? Oh, one of the actors. Mm-hmm. Oh boy, they played best friends on TV, but the truth was a lot uglier. The Facts of Life was planning their big TV comeback when one actress secretly tried to get rich without the others. The betrayal was so ugly they stopped speaking for months. Even TV legend Norman Lear couldn't fix it before he died. Fans are shocked to discover which beloved star destroyed their friendship forever. And it's the last person anyone expected. In 1979, NBC was in big trouble. Out of the 3 major TV networks, it was dead last in the ratings. Only one of its shows, Little House on the Prairie, was doing well. The rest were flops, including a massive failure called Supertrain, which tried to be a glamorous love boat on rails, but turned into a disaster. NBC had spent millions and had nothing to show for it. The network was desperate. One show that wasn't a total failure was Different Strokes. It wasn't a smash hit, but people liked it, especially because of Gary Coleman. The NBC boss at the time, Fred Silverman, knew they had to make the most out of anything that was even slightly working. He had already helped bring success to CBS and ABC in the past, and now he was trying to save NBC. So, he took a chance. In the summer of 1979, NBC launched a new show called The Facts of Life, a spin-off from Different Strokes. Almost no one watched it at first. Out of 79 shows that summer, it ranked 74th. It looked like another failure, but everything changed in the second season. After some big changes to the show's format, it suddenly took off. By the third season, The Facts of Life became NBC's top comedy. A lot of that success goes back to Charlotte Rae. She played Edna Garrett, the housekeeper on Different Strokes. Rae wasn't just an actress. They called her a character actress, someone who could play strong, unique roles. She had been in the business for years and knew what she was doing. She had an idea. What if her character had her own show, working at a girls' school? She pitched the idea to NBC, but also made sure she could come back to Different Strokes if the spin-off failed. That way, her career wouldn't be ruined. It was a smart move. Fred Silverman, the NBC boss, had made the call to spin off Mrs. Garrett's character before Different Strokes even finished its first season. That was unheard of. But Silverman didn't follow the rules. He trusted his gut. He had already brought in big shows to other networks and was trying to do the same at NBC. He wanted Norman Lear to produce Different Strokes, and he knew Lear liked working with Charlotte Rae. She had already appeared in some of Lear's other shows. Silverman quickly hired her to play the housekeeper. Then he doubled down. Even before seeing if the audience truly loved the character, he gave Rae her own show. It was part of his bigger plan to rebuild NBC's lineup. In time, that plan would lead to major hits like Hill Street Blues, Saint Elsewhere, and Cheers. But it all started with The Facts of Life. In 1979, Charlotte Rae was preparing for a spin-off of Different Strokes and visited the Westlake School for Girls in Burbank to do research. She wasn't there to scout talent, just to understand the environment. But then something unexpected happened. A 13-year-old student named Mindy Cohn was assigned to show her and producer Norman Lear around the school. Mindy had never acted. She was just being herself, funny, charming, and completely unfiltered. That was enough. Rae and Lear were so taken by her personality that they created a new character just for her. They named her Natalie Green, and Mindy got the part without even auditioning. Suddenly, she was on a hit TV show while still doing her schoolwork every night like nothing had changed. To her parents, it was no different than joining the tennis team. Around the same time, a young girl named Kim Fields was getting ready for an audition she almost skipped. She was only 9, and when she walked into the room, she saw older girls who looked like they belonged on magazine covers. She wanted to turn around and leave, but her mom stopped her with a bathroom pep talk. She told Kim not to let anyone, not even her own fears, get in the way. That pep talk worked. Kim landed the role of Tootie, even though she was supposed to be playing a 12-year-old. The only problem? She was tiny. The producers had to get creative to make her look taller next to the other girls. they put her on roller skates. It worked so well that it became part of her character's identity and one of the show's most iconic visual quirks. Molly Ringwald was also there during that first season. At just 11, she played a socially aware girl named Molly Parker, who carried a guitar and spoke her mind. She was part of the original group of 7 girls on the show. But after the first season flopped, everything changed. The network wanted to tighten the focus, and Molly was deemed too young for the new direction. She was let go along with most of the original cast. It was a painful experience for her. She later said that being dropped felt humiliating, but that setback didn't last long. Within a few years, she became one of the most famous teen stars in Hollywood, headlining 16 Candles, The Breakfast Club, and Pretty in Pink. When The Facts of Life started in 1979, it was a mess. The cast was too big, the writing was flat, and almost no one was watching. It looked like another forgotten spin-off. NBC was ready to pull the plug after one season, but one executive refused to let it die. Brandon Tartikoff, a rising star at NBC, saw potential. He fought to keep the show alive, even when the legendary Norman Lear, who helped create it, wanted nothing to do with it. Lear thought the show was so weak he asked for his name to be taken off the credits. Still, he ended up making around $30 million from it. The show he didn't even want turned into a gold mine. That second season changed everything. The first thing they did, cut the cast. The original version had 7 girls, but almost half were suddenly gone. No big farewell episodes, no real explanation. Just a sharper focus on 3 girls: Blair, Natalie, and Tootie. One of the girls dropped was a young Molly Ringwald, just before she became a huge movie star. It was risky. Viewers were confused. Blair, who used to look down on the younger girls, suddenly acted like they'd always been best friends. With the awkward transition, the tighter cast gave the show more direction. It started to feel like a real series instead of a jumble. Then came Joan Nancy McKeon, who showed up as Joe Polachuk, a tough girl from the Bronx with a leather jacket and a motorcycle. Her first scene covered in grease arguing with Blair, that spark between them changed everything. At first, some critics thought McKeon was too rough around the edges, but fans quickly connected with her. Joe gave the show a bite. She made it feel real. Behind the scenes, it wasn't all fun. McKeon later admitted that growing up on the show was hard. The cast was young, just teenagers, and under constant pressure about their weight and looks. "You're basically filming someone's puberty," she said years later. The spotlight wasn't always kind. The show also changed locations. It moved out of the dorm and into the school cafeteria, where the girls worked under Mrs. Garrett, who is now the school's dietitian. That gave the writers more freedom. It felt less like a sleepover and more like a working environment. There were moments that were funny, weird, even wild, like when someone stole lobster from the school kitchen. A rich prep school indeed. And then boom, the ratings took off. In just 1 year, The Facts of Life went from NBC's worst-rated sitcom to one of its top performers. A new time slot helped, but it was the retooling that made the difference. By season 3, it wasn't just doing well, it was NBC's #1 comedy. It even beat Different Strokes, the show that launched it. What kept people watching wasn't just the jokes. It was the heart. This wasn't just a show about school uniforms and food fights. It tackled real issues: racism, drugs, eating disorders, even suicide, and it didn't sugarcoat them. One episode about teen sex was so bold that Lisa Whelchel, who played Blair, asked to sit it out because of her religious beliefs. NBC aired it anyway with a parental warning. It still landed in the top 25 that week. Even the theme song became a classic. The catchy line, "You take the good, you take the bad," was written by Alan Thicke, Gloria Loring, and Al Burton. Loring sang it. It changed slightly over the years, but people never stopped singing along. Thicke once said, "Writing a theme song was like writing a 24-second pitch for the whole show." His pitch worked. Looking back, it's hard to believe how close the show came to disappearing. But with a few bold moves, The Facts of Life turned itself around. New cast, new setting, new energy. What started as a mess turned into one of the longest-running sitcoms of the 80s, and all it took was a second chance and a little fight to get there. Meanwhile, things behind the scenes were not so good. When Mindy Cohn returned to the set of The Facts of Life after a summer break, she looked a little different. She had gotten more active, her metabolism had changed, and like many teenagers, her body naturally slimmed down. But instead of praising her for being healthy, the producers pulled her aside and asked what happened. They weren't happy. They told her she needed to gain the weight back. Mindy was stunned. The character she played, Natalie, was never officially called the fat girl, but apparently that's how the producers saw her. They wanted her to stay that way. Mindy's mom wasn't having it. She stepped in and told them no. She told them to go visit a real high school and see what girls that age actually looked like. Mindy refused to gain the weight back, so the costume department came up with a different solution. They started dressing her in oversized clothes, trying to make her look heavier on camera. It was all about appearance, and no one seemed to care how damaging it could be to a teenage girl growing up under that kind of pressure. Things didn't get any better when the cameras stopped rolling. Joan Rivers, one of the most famous comedians in the world at the time, began using the facts of life as a punchline in her routines. She called it the fats of life, and the joke stuck. Even though there was no internet back then, word got around fast. The girls on the show heard about it. They saw it on TV. Lisa Whelchel, who played Blair, said they knew exactly what Joan was saying. Mindy remembered Rivers turning it into a regular bit, asking her audience if they'd seen the latest episode of The Fats of Life. People laughed, and the girls just had to take it. They never talked about it on set. They were tired of the whole conversation around weight, but that didn't make it go away. Lisa Whelchel dealt with a different kind of humiliation. The producers put a scale on set and made her weigh herself, sometimes in front of them. She said, it became part of the routine. During the show's hiatus, when she thought she'd get a break, they sent her to weight loss camps instead. She'd say she was going home to Texas, but they'd hand her a plane ticket to a so-called fat farm. She was only 16. Her parents were going through a divorce. Her body was changing, and instead of support, she got constant judgment. One day, the craft table swapped out donuts and cookies for celery sticks and carrot sticks. It wasn't always cruel, she said, but it was always there. The unspoken message that her body wasn't good enough. The pressure wasn't just physical. It left scars they carried for years. Nancy McKeon, who joined the show at just 14, looked back and talked about what it meant to grow up on camera. From puberty to adulthood, everything was recorded, watched, and judged. Psychologists say that adolescence is one of the most fragile stages for body image, and being under a spotlight makes it even worse. Lisa described it as a daily battle, one where you couldn't escape the feeling that you were always being looked at, always being measured. That kind of pressure changes how a young person sees themselves. It creates a kind of mental loop where you're always checking, always worrying. You stop focusing on who you are and start obsessing over how you look. Lisa Whelchel was just a teenager when she landed the role of Blair Warner on The Facts of Life. The show was a big hit, and her character quickly became one of the most popular. But behind the scenes, Lisa faced a tough decision. Early in the show's run, the producers had planned a big storyline for Blair. They wanted her to be the first character to lose her virginity. Lisa, however, didn't agree with it. She had been a Christian since she was 10, and her faith was a big part of who she was. When they brought the idea to her, she didn't hesitate. She told them directly, "That's not something I can be a part of." It wasn't just about personal beliefs. She also felt a responsibility to the young viewers who looked up to her. She didn't think such a serious topic could be handled the right way in just one episode, squeezed between commercial breaks. She didn't want to take that risk. It could have hurt her career. Saying no to a major storyline like that, especially on a popular show, wasn't something many young actors would have done. But Lisa stood her ground. To her surprise, the producers respected her decision. She later said they were always supportive of her beliefs, which wasn't always the case in Hollywood. The idea didn't disappear. It just sat in the background for 7 years. It stayed off the screen, untouched. Then, in the final season, the writers decided to bring it back. This time, though, the story didn't go to Blair. It was given to Natalie, played by Mindy Cohn. Unlike Lisa, Mindy didn't have a problem with it. When producers brought it up, she reportedly said, "Hey, I'll do it. So, in 1988, near the end of the show's run, the episode finally aired. Natalie, now 21, loses her virginity to her boyfriend Snake. They'd been together a year, and the show framed it as a mature decision between two adults in a serious relationship. It was a big moment. A show that had avoided talking about sex for nearly a decade was finally going there with characters who were well into their 20s. Some people found that ironic. The show was called The Facts of Life, after all, but for most of its run, it avoided one of the biggest facts of all. One critic joked that the show didn't live up to its name since no one had sex until the final season, and by then, they were all adults. When the episode aired, NBC didn't treat it like a normal sitcom. They opened with a parental advisory, telling viewers that the subject matter might not be suitable for kids. That kind of warning was rare at the time, especially for a comedy. But even with the caution sign at the beginning, the episode did well. In the ratings, it came in 22nd that week, which was impressive. The reaction was mixed. Some praised how the show handled the topic. It wasn't cheap or rushed, but others had issues with how the other characters responded. Some viewers felt the girls quietly judged Natalie, even shamed her, which rubbed people the wrong way. For older audiences, the episode felt honest and thoughtful. For younger viewers, it seemed outdated, even a little preachy. Then came 2001, and plans for a reunion movie started to form. Most of the cast agreed to come back, but Nancy McKeon didn't officially. It was a scheduling issue since she was filming The Division, but there was more to it. She had joked in early talks that if they brought Joe back, it should be as a ghost, like in The Big Chill. That joke somehow stuck. The movie still moved forward, filming right as the world was changing. Production began just before September 11th and continued during that tragic moment in history. The reunion told a story of the girls meeting up for Thanksgiving. Blair was running a hotel empire. Tootie, now going by Dorothy, was a talk show host, and Natalie brought them all together. Joe didn't appear, but her daughter did. Oddly enough, the cast had once promised each other they would never do a reunion film. But time passed, circumstances changed, and most of them said yes. Years later, in 2019, the four original stars finally reunited on screen. This time, it was for a Lifetime Christmas movie, You Light Up My Christmas, produced by Kim Fields. She called the women her sisters and made sure they were involved in choosing their costumes and character names. The movie was full of little nods to fans of the old show, and in a touching tribute, they named the town's ice skating rink after Charlotte Rae, who had passed away the year before. It was a sweet gesture, and fans appreciated it. One even called it lighthearted and fun, giving it a nearly perfect review online. Back in December 2021, something surprising happened. ABC aired a live special where celebrities reenacted old sitcoms. One of the shows was The Facts of Life. The other was Different Strokes. People loved it. Viewers tuned in by the millions, and critics gave it great reviews. During a panel after the show, big names like Octavia Spencer, Amy Poehler, and Jennifer Aniston all said The Facts of Life was their favorite. That moment changed everything. Norman Lear, the legendary producer behind the show, was watching. Even at his age, he was in his late 90s, he was surprised. He hadn't realized just how much people still cared about the show. So, he did something unexpected. He called the four original stars, Mindy Cohn, Lisa Whelchel, Kim Fields, and Nancy McKeon. He asked them if they'd be interested in bringing the show back. The timing was strange. It was 2022, and the world was still dealing with the pandemic. Everyone was stuck at home, but the idea of a reboot brought some excitement. The four women started talking seriously. They met on Zoom, laughing, brainstorming, and reconnecting after years apart. They even hired a writer to help shape the reboot. Norman Lear joined in too. Despite his age, he gave notes, shared ideas, and helped guide the process. For the first time in decades, the original cast was working together again, dreaming up a modern version of their old show. It felt good. It felt real. Then everything fell apart. The cast, who had stayed close for decades, suddenly stopped talking. Mindy Cohn opened up about it in a July 2024 interview. She said one of the cast members had gone behind everyone's back, secretly trying to get her own spin-off. That move caused a wave of emotions that broke apart a 40-year friendship. Until that moment, their bond had been drama-free since the show ended in 1988, something almost unheard of in Hollywood. But after the betrayal, everything changed. For months, they didn't speak at all. And when they finally did, it was awkward and shallow. Cohn called it weirdo-ish when describing the way they spoke. Now, it wasn't real friendship anymore, just polite, surface-level contact. The timing made it hurt even more. During the pandemic, they'd been working closely on Zoom, building the revival together. They were brainstorming ideas, shaping the storyline, and doing it all with the blessing of legendary producer Norman Lear. Lear even tried to help smooth things over before he passed away in December 2023, but nothing worked. The damage was done. The time Cohn gave that interview, she made it clear the trust was gone and it wasn't coming back. She said there was no desire to ever work together again. That might not sound shocking for most celebrity groups,